Okay, Namaste everyone, this is Radha Krishna. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to another Thoughtful Thursday. And tonight's topic is, as I'm sure you're aware, that's how you've got here, is YOLO, a.k.a. you only live once, make the most of it. It's becoming something, I think it's kind of started coming around about maybe 3-4 years ago. I think it was in a rap song by Rick Ross and Drake, if I recall, this idea of YOLO. And many people adopt it as being their, how they judge what they should do in life. It's what's important, what's not important, how to act. Basically, it's the idea of, like we said, seize the day, just go for it. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. All kind of other modern things like follow your bliss, all of these kind of ideas are connected to it, even much more ancient than that. You probably recall the saying about eat, drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. All these are just variations on this same idea of YOLO. So it's just a repackaged idea from time immemorial. So it's not something new, it's been around for a very long time. So tonight what we want to do is explore, is this actually true? Is this actually the best road to take in my journey in life? Will it bring me the satisfaction, the happiness, the joy, the pleasure, the freedom from fear and anxiety that each one of us is longing for? So we'll get into that. But to start with, let's do our meditation, because this helps to settle the mind and bring us into a state where we can speak and hear more clearly these ideas, and that way contemplate upon them and see how we can apply this wisdom in our own personal journey. So let's begin with our meditation. I'll be guiding you through this. It'll take about 10 or 12 minutes. Very, very simple. It'll be some breath awareness and then some mindfulness practice. Then we move into mantra breath, where we add the mantra Go, Ra, Ga to our breath. And then at that point of the meditation, the mantra, the sound of the mantra, is the focus of our meditation. So one pointed focus upon the mantra, and this brings about the desired results of our meditation. So let's begin. If you would like to, depending on where you are, please close your eyes. And I'm pretty sure you'll start to hear some music coming through. This is an aid to help us become a little more relaxed, which is conducive for meditation and for hearing. So just for the first few moments, consciously listen to the background music there and let your mind come into the present. There may be all kinds of distractions either in your house or maybe outside in the street, or the mind wants to jump all over the place. We don't fight against these things. We always gently come back, effortlessly come back into our practice whenever we may stray. So we're not fighting or forcing anything. It's very easy. So let us become now also aware of the rhythm of our breath. After these few moments, you can feel how on each inward breath your body is gently expanding. Every single cell actually in our body expands with each inward breath. So try to become aware of that. And then with each outward breath, you feel how the relaxation of the whole body is taking place with that outward breath. Now we will move into mindfulness. This is also a very simple and easy practice where we initially step back and experience, become aware of how we are watching each breath. So we're not consciously, actively going inhale, exhale, but actually the breathing is taking place automatically. And we are able to observe each breath silently, quietly, as the silent witness observing the rhythm of each breath. Now with this same consciousness, this same awareness of being the silent witness, we step back from the mind, from the stream of thoughts which flows through the mind. So to help us come to that state, that awareness, you can mentally repeat this meditation after me. I am the silent witness. I make no effort to think, but thoughts come automatically. I'm watching thoughts flow through my mind. I am aloof from them. I am the silent witness of my mind's activities. Having come to this awareness that we are the silent witness, or the self, who is separate from and watching the body breathe, who is separate from and is watching the stream of thoughts move through the mind, then the natural question awakens, who am I who is the silent witness of the mind, of the breath, of the body. As I am the witness of these things, they are not me. I am the observer, the witness. In yoga wisdom, the sacred yoga text, it is very clearly described and put forward that we are not this physical body and we are not the ever-changing material mind. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. I am not material, I am not matter. I am not my physical body or mind. I am the eternal spirit soul, eternal spark of the Supreme Soul. This body has a beginning and it will end, it will die. I, the Self, the Atma, have no beginning nor end. I am eternal and ever-existing. When the body dies, I, the Atma, the Self, do not die but continue to exist. Aham Brahmasmi. So now let us take our meditation to a deeper place. And to take us to that place, we're very fortunate to be able to meditate upon this transcendental sound of the Gauranga mantra. So we're going to harmonize our breathing, and starting from the third outward breath, we say this beautiful sound, Gauranga. And as we say that sound, we listen with our ears to the sound. We rest the mind, we take the sound into the mind and let the mind find a rest in that transcendental sound. And then we, the Atma, the Self within the body, we embrace this transcendental sound as the source of our peace, our calmness, our joy, our happiness, love. This is all to be found in this sound of the Gauranga mantra. So let us immerse ourselves in this meditation experience. Let us inhale together. And exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Gauranga. One more time. Keeping your eyes closed for the next few moments. Let us spend time in this restful condition, holding awareness of the mantra in the mind. Prepare to open our eyes. And if you want to and it helps, you can do a little stretch just to kind of bring the body a little awake again. And get comfortable. That's the beauty of having the live stream, is that you guys can be as comfortable as you like. You can be lying on the floor if you want to, or on your couch, but hopefully not too comfortable that you'll go to sleep in the middle of it, but comfortable enough. You can be wearing any clothes, and yeah, that's one of the advantages of this. We're looking at continuing this even after we can come back into face-to-face classes and yoga in kirtan gatherings and things like that again. We're going to see if we can continue with these Thoughtful Thursday streams, particularly if you let us know in the comments if you're finding them helpful, useful, of some value. And the plan is to bring in some other speakers as well as myself, just to share it around, and you can get to hear from other people as well, and their personal realizations and presentations. So let us know in the quotes. I'll mention this again before we wrap up, but just thought I'd bring that to your attention now. Okay, so the topic for tonight, YOLO. I wonder how many of you were aware of that. Maybe let me know in the comments if this is something new to you, this idea of YOLO. Generally, it's in the younger generation, meaning 16 to 20-year-olds. It's kind of like a catchphrase. In the past, there's been, like in my day, I'm a little bit over 16 to 20. Basically, my version of this, or my generation's version of this, is if it feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. That's the kind of how you judge what to do or not do in life. And the other one we mentioned, of course, is eat, drink and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And of course the hippie, what was known as the hippie philosophy, I just want to do what I want to do when I feel like it. I don't want to be told what to do by anyone. I don't want anyone putting their trip on me. I just want to do what feels good for me personally. Can't read that. Yeah, I've got a note to read. Okay, so that's the idea. So is this the best way to lead our life? Is it the most productive? What's the purpose behind living a life like that anyway? The idea is that I'm naturally looking for pleasure. I'm looking for satisfaction. I'm looking for something to do in my life. I'm looking for what is the purpose in my life. When I wake up every morning or every evening, according to what kind of lifestyle I lead, what's in it for me? What adventure am I going to have today? What should I do today? What should I not do today? So this is where these different philosophies, so to speak, or points of view come in, including this motto of you only live once. So that kind of manifests itself in things like, well, you know, should I buy this new whatever it might be, or pay my rent? Because maybe the person's got a limited amount of money and the rent's due, but they also have a strong desire to get this particular thing. So they go YOLO. In other words, you only live once. Let me buy the phone, let me buy the new shoes, let me buy the new whatever it might be. So, you know, should I go and get drunk, or should I do this, should I do that? YOLO. You only live once, go for it. Get what you can, get as much excitement, pack it all in. You know, we've only got at most 70 to 80 years, unless you're really unlucky and you get to be 90. Because, you know, how much YOLO can you do at 90? You know, how much fun is there to, you know, in a 90-year-old body? For most people, there's some exceptions, of course, but for most people it ain't no fun. So really this is kind of like a motto when we're younger, when we don't kind of see too far ahead. Then we just go for it. I'm only going to be here for 7 or 8 years, so you got to enjoy yourself. So if we are of that mentality or that view that we only live once, so what's combined with this usually is this idea that this is me. My body, me, this is me, this is me. So me is the body, the mind, the senses, the thoughts, the desires, the plans that are in the mind. This is all me. So if this is me and everything finishes at the end of this 60, 70, 80 years, then it is quite a logical worldview to have and a lifestyle and to live, is that if this is it, you get one go round, and the highest experiences are some kind of sensual indulgence, some kind of smelling something beautiful, tasting something, seeing some beautiful thing, touching, all the different experiences of the senses, then that makes complete and logical sense to live a lifestyle headed, guided by that philosophy. So of course there's another, not exactly the same, but kind of connected, the older, you know, the older generation than 16 to 20-year-olds, you know, the mid-20s to mid-30s kind of thing, they also have a motto or a slogan that drives some of their decisions in life. And you may have heard of that. It's called FOMO, the fear of missing out. You're thinking, you know, gee, what I'm doing is not the best thing. You know, maybe they're following a combination of YOLO and FOMO. In other words, you only live once, so let me go for it. And then this is coupled with an anxiety that I'm going for it, I'm doing this stuff, but is this really, maybe there's something better out there, maybe there's something more I should be doing. You know, I look on my social media and see, you know, what's happening, and you know, of course, you know, you see everything on social media is just wonderful and amazing, and a life worth living, of course, is what's put forward. So we think there's a fear that maybe I should be at that party, maybe I shouldn't have gone to this country for my holiday, I should have gone to a different country because my friends told me that, you know, they had so much more fun there than what I'm having. And this even kind of manifests itself with our devices. You know, there's such a plethora of options now as far as what smartphones we buy. I mean, there's just hundreds of choices. And we go through and read all the reviews and try and work out, you know, which is the one that's going to give me the most experience. And then we get it. And then, of course, there's a new one released 3 days after we decide on this one. And we kind of get the phone and it doesn't really deliver completely on what I hoped it would. So there's this anxiety, this fear of missing out. So either one of these is, you know, it's having an effect on our journey through life if we follow these ideas, these mottos. There's one I found out about today when I did a little bit of research, so to speak. It's called JOMO. So there's FOMO, fear of missing out, and then there's another one that now is kind of like a reaction to FOMO, and kind of a reaction to, you know, You only live once as well. But it's like the joy of missing out. This is JOMO. In other words, a person kind of experiences they're on this treadmill of trying to keep up, what used to be known as keeping up with the Joneses. That's the old-fashioned way of FOMO. Having the newest, the latest, the greatest, thing worth having. So there's people who've kind of been on that treadmill and found that it's not satisfying, it's not satisfactory. In fact, it just brings anxiety and stress. So now there's a movement called JOMO, which means the joy of missing out. So it's the pleasure of taking a break from all the social activities to have some personal time. And for some people that personal time is an inner place, an inner journey, an inner experience, meditation, some kind of spirituality. So this is the natural outcome of a lifestyle centered around FOMO. One becomes frustrated by it eventually, stressed by it. So the basic message of this isn't really very deep. It's this. We get one shot with this life and we can use it however we choose. For some people, that idea may make them feel like they need to squeeze out all the enjoyment that they can out of life. Of course, enjoyment here we're talking about, sensual experiences. They should blow all their money on what makes them happy in the moment. This is another manifestation. Be in the moment. Or, okay, if I'm in the moment and I want to do this and I think this will make me happy, let me just do this. And this kind of ends up manifesting itself. If a certain relationship isn't fun anymore, this person's, if I go further with it, it's a bit of a hassle, then what's the outcome of this life choice, this view of life? Well, when the relationship's not fun anymore, it's time to get out. It's time to, what I heard referred to as repartnering. It's time to move on, just move on from that. And if the responsibility of a particular job seems too heavy, I just walk away. That's YOLO. You only live once. What's the point of staying there? If your extended family drives you crazy, just cut them out. Cut out that relationship. Just have all the fun you want regardless of the cost. This is basically people who are following the YOLO view of life. This is some of the decisions that emanate from that point of view. So on the surface of it, the hedonistic, what's known as a hedonistic philosophy or lifestyle, means to search out for as much pleasure, sensual pleasure, as I can in life, and to avoid pain, to avoid troubling situations. Anything that caused me a hassle or a pain, then I make a personal decision that I'm going to pursue that which brings me some pleasure, and I'm going to stay away from any situation, any person, anything which may cause me a hassle or a problem or some kind of pain, either physical or mental. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That we should just treat ourselves to as much enjoyment, adventure, and experiences as we want. Be in the moment. So when I was kind of thinking about this topic and getting some ideas, pulling some ideas together for it, I was also reading about one of the early film stars known as Errol Flynn. I don't know if you've heard of Errol Flynn. Maybe you have. He was in many ways a really impressive person. He was highly intelligent, motivated, determined, charismatic, super handsome. And in his autobiography, he explains that his whole aim in life was to get as much out of it as he could. He believed that since we're only going to be around on this planet once, then you should try everything. You should not have any restrictions on what you do. You should just go for it. That's the other kind of saying of this as well, just go for it, do what you want to do. Now, of course, you may know that Errol Flynn was born and raised in Australia. He travelled all over the world. He went to England to start his acting career. He ended up in Hollywood, and fame and wealth came from there, from the movies that he was in. And of course, this fame and wealth that he acquired gave him access to many, many more experiences than he'd had before. He had affairs with some of the world's most beautiful and famous actresses, and just women in general. He was known for it. He occupied some of Hollywood's most beautiful mansions. He lived in these various amazing mansions in Hollywood. And he owned a whole series of incredibly expensive and amazing yachts. I think, maybe there was that song from a band called Australian Crawl. Was it called Sirocco? I think that was the name of one of Errol Flynn's, expensive, really amazing yachts that he had. So where did his try everything philosophy lead him to in life? Where did he end up? Well, he ended up experimenting with a lot of drugs and alcohol, including things like heroin and cocaine, all that kind of stuff. That's the philosophy. You only live once, try everything, just go for it. So Errol Flynn's, his lavish lifestyle on the outside, in particular when you see documentaries and things, may seem really attractive. But more than anything else, he exemplifies the illusory nature of the hedonistic happiness. Name, fame, beauty, influence, money, control. He had everything. He had it all. Worshipped, adoring fans. But he was dissatisfied and depressed, is where Errol Flynn ended up. He ended up dying, I think, at 50, if I recall. He had cirrhosis of the liver from his excessive drinking and lifestyle, etc. And he left behind a trail of pain and chaos. Because inherent in hedonism is selfishness. Basically, it's all about me, where the person focuses on their own personal search for pleasure. That's at the root, the foundation of hedonism. It is their own personal search for pleasure, personal search. Hedonists put themselves before others. Before others, because don't forget, the idea is move towards pleasure, move away from that which causes problems. So they put themselves before others and end up neglecting their responsibilities many times. And unfortunately, this was the case with Errol Flynn. He had countless lovers, he had 3 or 4 wives, and most significantly, his 4 children were badly damaged by his selfishness and the irresponsibility that flowed from that. So this is, part of the, when we're younger, we don't think too far ahead or think too deeply about the outcomes of the choices that we make, but we should learn from the choice, seeing what choices others have made and where has it led in their life. So in the long run, trying to find happiness solely through hedonism leads to a sense of meaningless and emptiness. And this can be seen not only in the life of Errol Flynn, but if you look at the lives of many other famous and wealthy individuals, I mean, the list is basically endless, and you can see they all had similar issues. Being a millionaire and having access to unlimited pleasure, comforts, luxuries did not help Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, so many, on and on. They ended up, many of them committing suicide on all kind of medications and things like that. And of course, which means there is a lack of contentment, there was a lack of joy, there was a lack of satisfaction in a person's life if they end up, addicted to drugs or alcohol or commit suicide. So if anything, you can kind of almost say, and it's not exactly true, but the access to all of this fame and power and ability to have whatever you want left them feeling empty and unhappy. That's an intelligent thing to do, is to see from the example of others' lives. So what does all this have to do with a spiritual view of life and the spiritual view of the self? And therefore inseparable from that is our purpose in life. So it can be stated correctly, universally that people are looking for happiness. People are looking for satisfaction. Everyone. Doesn't matter what religion a person is. It doesn't matter what background, what part of socioeconomic ladder we may be on. Doesn't matter what our culture is, our sex, nationality, age. Everybody is looking for happiness and for pleasure. So therefore it could be said pleasure is the goal of life. So the yogis and transcendentalists, those who are interested in spiritual life, are not masochists. They are not looking for trouble. They are not trying to avoid happiness or pleasure. And they're not putting forward or not saying that we should not enjoy our life. No, in fact, the goal of yoga, the goal of spiritual cultivation is the highest pleasure, is the highest happiness, the highest joy, complete contentment and satisfaction, wisdom and spiritual love. This is actually what the aspiring transcendentalist or yogi is actually looking for. They're also looking to be happy and they're looking for joy. So the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, and the saintly persons, the yogis, the self-realized yoga masters are not saying that we should not be happy and that pleasure or happiness is bad or wrong. But what they are pointing out is the problem is that if you're looking for happiness outside of yourself, if you're focusing your aim outside, trying to suck happiness in through the senses, through enjoying the taste experience of the tongue or the sensual experience of the genitals and the other senses, if that's where you're focusing, your attention to try to get happiness, then what happens is that automatically that approach to life, that external view of life and of the self, eclipses our vision of an inner world. So as long as we are focused externally in the world of the senses, then this eclipses or takes over our vision of an inner world, the world of spiritual happiness. So happiness is not wrong, but we're looking for spiritual happiness. And it's not possible to live in both worlds in one sense. It's, one of our saintly person called Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is describing like you can't go in two directions. You can't go north and south at the same time because they're totally different experiences. You'll either be heading north, that's your trail in life, it's your path in life, or if you're heading south. So this is also what the transcendentalists teach, is that these are two different worldviews, two different approaches to life. So either we're looking for our happiness in connection with the world of the senses, or the other direction is in our inner relationship with the Supreme. So either the temporary material energy is where we're looking for happiness, or in this inner spiritual world. So that's just the way things are. You can't be heading south while you're heading north. That's just how it is, so to speak. So if a person wants to enjoy that higher spiritual happiness, then he has to learn how to cool the senses, to make it so that the senses come under our control. And that doing that, I redirect my attention towards spiritual cultivation. And when you try to enjoy the world, what happens is that we also get agitated. The senses, the mind is continually agitated, feeling dissatisfaction. So this kind of is coming down to this question. Who am I? It's inseparable. Our search for pleasure and happiness is inseparable from this question of who am I? Because this governs how I view life. So as we did, if you were there in the beginning of the stream, we did a meditation that we went through, and some mindfulness where we step back from the body, from the breath, and experience that we are the observer of the body and of each breath. And then we step back further and experience how we are the witness, the observer of the mind, the thoughts, the desires, the feelings that are there in the mind. So if we are the silent witness who is observing these, then we can come to the conclusion that we cannot be that which we are observing, because there is, the observer, the act of observation, and then the object which is being observed, and these are three separate things. I mean, they're connected, but they are also three separate things. So the object being observed by the observer are different. So who is the observer? Who is the observer, the perceiver of the experience of the senses and of the mind, etc., etc.? That is I, the self, the Atma. This was also the conclusion we came to in our meditation, and it is the conclusion of all yoga sacred text and self-realized sages and yoga masters. Aham Brahmasmi. We are not our physical body, and we are not the mind. And because we are not material, we are not matter, because our essence is spiritual, then from that we can conclude that nothing material, no material energy and no material experience can satisfy what is actually a spiritual yearning or a spiritual longing. Let's get a drink here. So there is a direct connection between understanding our essence, and as we also meditated at that time, and as is spoken of very clearly by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that for the living being, for the self, for you, for me, there is never birth nor death. The living being is eternal and ever existing. The living being does not die when the body dies. So from this we understand that our life is very long. Our life is not just a matter of 60, 70 or 80 years. We never die. So therefore we are ever existing. We are always alive. There is actually no such thing as death for the self, for you, for who you truly are. You will always exist, whether in this body or out of this body. Our existence will always be there. So then we can understand this idea of you only live once, go for it, does not actually fit into the reality of life. Because we only live once is true in the sense that we are eternal, but if they think this life, we only have this, and this is our life, and this is as long as we live, this 60 or 70 years, then we start making decisions centered around that erroneous concept of life. And therefore, being based on a falsehood, a delusion, it cannot deliver the goods. It cannot deliver the satisfaction, the joy, the pleasure, the happiness that the person is naturally seeking. I remember one time my spiritual teacher used a really nice example to illustrate this whole approach to life. It wasn't called YOLO, it was before, I heard it before that motto came out. But it was to do with what is real progress, what should we be striving for to lead a successful life. And one of the examples that he used was, if we think our life is going to be this 60 or 70 years, then as we look at our life, we start planning, what we're going to do in this 60 or 70 years, because this is all we get. So we might as well just go for it, right? So then when the person sits down to plan, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go here, I'll have this education, I'll get this job, I'll travel here, and then they plan it out, and then they're going to plan, the retirement, and then of course no one ever thinks of, what happens after retirement. After retirement comes death. But most people don't put that in their bucket list, their to-dos. So They plan it out. But the point that my spiritual teacher made in connection with this is, it's like when you understand that you are eternal and you have an eternal existence and an eternal life, then to make all of your decisions on how you're going to live your eternal life based on this erroneous platform that I only have 60 or 70 years to live is like, some young person planning their life as if it was only going to be one day. So, they wake up in the morning and they have 24 hours to live, so they end up planning their life, their 24 hours, because that's all they think they have. So, I'm going to do this for a couple of hours, then I'm going to do that for a couple of hours, and then this and that. And of course, I'm not going to sleep. I've only got 24 hours. I'm just going to go for it, get what I can, get all the experiences in a short amount of time as possible. So if a person erroneously thinks they're only going to live for one day, then they're going to miss out on so much of their life. Similarly, if a person thinks they only have 60 or 70 years, that is analogous to that young person who's planning their whole life around 24 hours. Because our life is so much more than this 60 or 70 years. So then he also, in that same talk, I remember he used the example of just go for it. Get everything you can. What was that saying they had? He who dies with the most stuff wins. This is the natural conclusion if one actually thinks this is my only life, this 60 years, I am this body, this is me, so to get as much material stuff, as much experience, as many experiences as I can have, this is it, just go for it. Just don't waste a moment in things like sleep or responsibilities or work or staying in a relationship that, gee, I'm not getting anything out of it anymore. This is the natural outcome. So the example that my spiritual teacher used to illustrate this was that back in the day, years ago, on television, they had a program, I forget what they call it, not King for a Day or Queen for a Day, but basically the outcome was if you won, you got to the top of the competition, you got to spend a certain amount of time in like a Costco's, one of those big kind of warehouse things where they've got everything. And you had like a shopping trolley. And you had whatever it was, let's say it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And in that 5 or 10 minutes, you'd rush around the store as fast as you can and throw as much as you can, into the shopping trolley. And then you get to have that. And that's kind of like the prize, is whatever you can stuff in the shopping trolley in that particular amount of time. So this idea of YOLO is similar to that competition. Let me stuff in as much and squeeze as much out of what I think is life as possible in the limited amount of time I have. It's really short. So to come back to the competition, so then frantically sweating, running around, the shop, just throwing everything in the shopping cart, piling it high as they can. And then the idea is, at the end of the 5-10 minutes, whatever it was, then they get to take all that with them, and that's theirs. So that's that idea of, he who dies with the most stuff wins. But what people don't think about too deeply is that it's not like that. Even though you spend all this time throwing as much experiences, as many experiences as you can, and as much stuff as you can in the shopping trolley, when you come to the checkout at the end of the 60 years, you don't get to keep any of it. It's been a scam. Even the people who run the competition know that when the person runs around with a shopping trolley, they're not going to let them keep it. They're just saying, yeah, go for it. And people are on the side cheering, yeah, this guy's a success. Look how much stuff he has in his shopping trolley. Look how many countries he's been to. Look how many people he's had sex with. Look how much he's achieved. Look how powerful he is. Look how many cars he has. Look how much power and influence and fame he has. This is all the stuff being piled into our shopping trolleys. And they're considered to be the success in life. And that's a life worth living. So those people we mentioned earlier, from Errol Flynn to Elvis Presley to Whitney Houston, Hendrix, all these guys, so many. They were leading a life similar to this. And what was the result of such an hedonistic life? It was not contentment, fulfillment, happiness, joy, which was being promised or put forward like a carrot. So this is where, again, to come back to this central understanding. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit. Even from that, without going any further, understanding my true nature, my essence is life force, is spirit. Material energy cannot satisfy spiritual need. Material energy of any kind, I don't just mean things, I mean, jumping off a bridge and bungee jumping, whatever it might be. Material energy cannot satisfy the spiritual soul, the spirit's self, me, the living being. It is of a completely different nature, completely different energy, a completely different experience. It brings a certain amount of stimulation to our senses of the body, but you cannot describe it as being happiness. It is flickering. The experience comes and goes very quickly, and it is not satisfying. It leaves me wanting more. So this is one of the, some more of the evidence that we are not our bodies. If we were these bodies and mind and the senses that are connected part of the body, if this was actually me, then a hedonistic lifestyle would bring me satisfaction, happiness, pleasure, purpose, meaning. Is that understandable? If this is me and I am matter, I am material, then material energy would satisfy me completely, fully, totally. The very fact that we all experience it does not, it brings me limited pleasure. And again, pleasure is not bad. We're not saying this is bad or wrong. We're trying to be a little, objective here with the understanding that there is something higher, there is something more, or you can say there is something deeper, depends on which way, we want to look at it. So from this we can conclude that trying to squeeze out experiences and happiness from things will actually not bring me a complete life. So the yogis and spiritualists say clearly that we are not the body. We are the spirit soul, the life particle, the Atma, temporarily within this body. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. I am not the body. And as we said, from there we easily conclude we cannot get satisfaction from trying to squeeze pleasure out of matter. It will not happen. So one other thing I was reading about in doing some, putting together some notes for tonight was, so hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure, so-called, but of course it's in connection with the pursuit of pleasure of the senses, not because there is not even an inkling or understanding of the nature of the self being different from the body and mind. So this is the definition of hedonism, the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. This is the best life we can live. Now, in, I don't know when, maybe the last 25 or 30 years, there's also been a new clinical condition called anhedonia. I don't know if I hadn't really heard of it much before this, anhedonia. It's a condition, a clinical condition where a person just feels no pleasure. Basically a person has lost all interest in activities that used to bring them, they used to enjoy doing, and they have a decreased ability to feel pleasure. So they're kind of just like flat in life. There's no real motivation and joy to get out and do something, they just feel it's not worth it, there's no pleasure in it, there's no pleasure in eating, there's no pleasure in going to movies or to a movie or in relationships or even sex. They're finding there's just no motivation to do it. And this condition is called anhedonia. So then, of course, they're trying to be helped, to come out of that condition, because basically they're kind of like they feel it's hopeless. They just feel tired of life. They feel, what's the point of the whole thing? I'm not really into it anymore. I just kind of gave up on life, is kind of how they talk about it. So they're kind of considered to be sick, basically. That's a disease or a condition, a clinical condition that has to be cured. So the transcendentalists have a different view of life. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes that there are two different worlds that people live in. The sage, the self-realized sage, he lives in one world, and the materially conditioned or the materially minded person lives in a completely opposite world. In fact, Krishna describes that what is nighttime for the introspective sage, nighttime means when you're asleep, you're not active, and is daytime for the materially conditioned person, the hedonist. And what is nighttime for the hedonist is daytime for the introspective sage. So they see things completely different. The saying is as different as night and day. So the sage, the introspective sage, lives in one worldview, one consciousness, and the hedonist lives in a completely different world, a completely different consciousness. So in that world of the sage, the daytime of the sage, and the yoga system itself puts forward that a truly free person is someone who is actually able to control their mind and their senses. But just because the senses are screaming out, I want, gimme, gimme, get this, get that, go here, go there, I want this, I want that. This is what the mind and the senses is always pushing forward. And as long as we are a slave to those desires and to the demands of the senses, then we are actually exactly that, a slave. And a slave means someone who is not free. So the yogi is striving for real freedom, complete freedom from being dragged around by the senses, the mind, and the sense objects, and all of that stuff. So they see to be the controller of the mind and the senses, and to go on an inner journey. This is true freedom. This is where real joy and real happiness is to be found, is actually in this inner life, because they clearly understand the distinction between themselves, their body, the physical body, and the mind, and the demands of the senses, and the proposals and desires, the unending stream of desires that the mind puts forward, and then I end up being dragged around by. So this is two different worlds. So if I am deluded person, if that is incorrect, in other words, if I am my body, therefore I am my senses, and therefore whatever the senses demand and the mind proposes, if I am my body, then I am a healthy person, a balanced person, if I pursue that lifestyle. Is that understandable? If I am this is me, then that's a healthy lifestyle to follow. And the so-called spiritualist is a deluded person, because they're missing out on the goal and purpose of life. And they should rethink their life and change their direction. Conversely, if we are actually not our bodies, we are not our mind, we are not our senses, and we are not our desires, and we are the eternal Atma, the eternal spirit soul within the body, then the lifestyle that the hedonist is follow is a deluded lifestyle, because it cannot bring joy, it cannot bring happiness. So I hope that, I don't want to keep going over the same thing, But this is at the crux, this is at the root of understanding whether leading a life of you only live once, just go for it, will actually lead to what I'm looking for. So it doesn't mean that a person does not have happiness. A person who doesn't have happiness within himself or enjoying the world but is miserable within, then he doesn't have any alternative source of happiness. This is also not the goal. So the goal is not just to shut oneself off from life and just to walk around miserable because, it's not good to enjoy the senses. This is also not what is being put forward by the transcendentalist, that you should just have no fun at all. You shouldn't even put salt in your soup or anything because that's hedonistic and enjoying the senses. No, this is the complete opposite is the fact. The transcendentalist is just pointing out very clearly that pursuing that life of hedonism will not bring you satisfaction because you are not your body. You are not your mind. Therefore it cannot satisfy you. You are the spirit soul within. So therefore they understand that we need to go on this inner journey, which means developing, cultivating wisdom and spiritual love, and cultivating my eternal relationship with the Supreme Soul. This is the journey, this inner cultivation is where I will actually experience the joy, the happiness, the satisfaction that I am naturally seeking. So the pleasure in this world comes and goes. It is flickering. It is temporary. You can't enjoy, so that's always going to be there. The pleasures of the body is going to be there. You can't eat without enjoying something. So it's not like we've got to cut our tongues out and deactivate our taste buds because we're spiritual. No, if we go outside and it's a nice day and we experience how pleasant it is, or if I'm with some friends and we're doing certain things and there's a certain amount of joy or pleasure or happiness that comes from those experiences, yoga isn't saying we have to cut ourselves off from them, from those activities, but we should have a clear understanding that those pleasures will come and they will go. They will be replaced by pain, pleasure and pain in this world, in this body. It will come and it will go. So to not make that the focus of our life, the meaning and the purpose of our life. Whatever pleasure comes. And I'm aware of it. I don't just dive into it as being this is my whole life, diving into eating whatever it might be, pizza or whatever, and I'm just diving into it and enjoying it, and the tongue and the mouth and the taste buds, and I'm just, this is just amazing. It's my whole life. So, the senses bring about a certain amount of pleasure, that's for sure. But then, of course, you've got the flip side. This is the nature of this world. What else do you get? You have teeth and you can enjoy chewing and breaking things down so you experience the flavor of things. What else comes along with teeth? Toothaches, fillings, abscesses, extractions. So this world is a world of pleasure and pain, and both will come and both will go. So don't make that which is flickering and impermanent the goal of your life. So the question is, where is real happiness? This is the thing we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with good or bad, or right or wrong. We're dealing with where is real happiness to be found, and let us make that our purpose of life. Because we are spiritual beings, we need spiritual pleasure. This is common sense. Like attracts like. So, because we're not matter, chemicals cannot make me happy. So it is cultivation of our inner spiritual life, our relationship with the Supreme Soul, which is a relationship of love and devotion. So it is to cultivate my natural inner life of spiritual love for the Supreme, for all living beings, to live a life based upon my real spiritual nature. This is actually where happiness is to be found. So how can we move more into that life? How can we move more into that world? How can we move forward in that purpose, in that journey in life? So this is what we learn from the self-realized yoga masters, from the sages. This is what we learn from the sacred yoga text, that the easiest, the simplest way to cultivate that inner life is through Harinama, or the practice of hearing and chanting the divine names of the Supreme. Because they connect up, these divine names connect us up to the source, to the original cause, to the absolute whole, to the Supreme Person, who has many names: Krishna, Gopala, Govinda, Allah, Eloi, El Shaddai, Abba. These are different names of that one Supreme Being, of whom we are all part. So it is in union, loving relationship, loving devotional service. This is the purpose of my life. It is in this life where I will actually find what I'm seeking. So how to do that? Well, that's what we're going to do now. We're going to have some kirtan, where we can actually connect up in our inner life. We can take an inner journey, a journey to the self, a journey also to the Supreme, through the holy names of the Supreme. So we hear them, we embrace them, we rest in them, we chant them, we sing them, and this purifies our heart and mind. And we will begin to taste that sweetness, that happiness, that joy, what is described as that ananda, that nectar of spiritual love, which is already there within us. And being satisfied within, we then do not race on this treadmill of a hedonistic lifestyle. We are able to control the senses and the mind and just let them out when they need, let the senses out when they are needed, and to rein them in when they, want to go someplace which is not for my benefit. Okay, so we're going to invite Madhulila to come and chant with us.
Namaste, everyone.
I hope you'll be able to hear okay. The audio is all good. All unmuted, ready to go. So please close your eyes and listen and join in.
Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana, Gopala, Govinda Rama, Madana, Mohana,
Gopala, that's another Thoughtful Thursday wrapped up. We will be back, and also we'd just like to remind you to, if you'd like to check out asmy.tv for a whole bunch of yoga asana videos, meditations, yoga wisdom talks, a whole bunch of things. Check that out if you haven't already. And also there's a really nice site called wisdom.yoga. If you go there, you can actually find out a lot more information about Bhakti Yoga, about yoga in general, all kind of aspects from different teachers about yoga wisdom, especially about how to live a spiritual life. So if you want to get more information, more study, then go to wisdom.yoga also, and you'll be really glad you did. A lot of nice articles from different teachers and videos and a whole bunch of stuff, meditations there as well.
So don't forget to let us know if you are enjoying Thoughtful Thursday and if you'd like it to continue beyond the COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah, because things are beginning to open up a little bit, and in the coming months, if things don't go bottom up again, then more people will be able to come to programs, events and things like that. So of course we're looking forward to that, but we're also thinking we may be able to continue, or if there's a need for it or interest in it, in Thoughtful Thursdays as well.
So if you like it, vote with your comments.
Yep. And again, thank you very much. Really nice that you've come to visit us, even though you're still in your homes. And we do look forward to catching up again soon.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Good night.
Okay. Another night.
It is. Well done. Another night well spent.
I think we're here more nights than not. Is it Friday, Sunday? Well, we have Tuesday night at home, Wednesday, Thursday.